There's anger in Syria on Saturday as protesters regroup following a huge crackdown by security forces. The so-called Day of Dignity demonstrations were held across the country on Friday. Hundreds of thousands of people turned out on both sides, including in the capital Damascus, where pro- and anti-government supporters clashed in the Old Town. And there are reports of at least a dozen more people being shot dead by security forces in as many as 6 towns and villages. One person reported killed by police in a Damascus suburb. And in Latakia, doctors say 4 people were killed when forces opened fire on a crowd of around 1,000 people. The highest toll was reported in the village of Sanamin, where locals say troops killed 20 civilians while trying to prevent a march to nearby Daraa. Our reporter, Zeina Khodr, defied a media ban to enter Daraa and sent us this story.
This is a city draped in black and a city raging with anger. For the past week, Daraa has been burying their dead. Demonstrators killed while clashing with security forces. Dozens are believed to have died. People here say at least 150, far higher than the figure of 37 provided by the state. This woman lost her son. Overwhelmed by grief, she couldn't tell her story. But others told theirs. They claim state security police used excessive force against protesters. Thousands took to the streets to demand those responsible for the killings be brought to justice.
People here are really angry. What they're saying is that whoever decides to kill their own people is a traitor. There has been a lot of blood that has been spilled here. People are vowing revenge.
The old city of Daraa has been and continues to be off-limits to journalists since the clashes began over a week ago. We managed to enter Friday morning with the help of some local residents. The government has been trying to contain the unrest. Authorities released all those detained on Thursday night and promised to look into lifting the emergency laws, concessions that did little to calm tensions here. People remain scared, too afraid to speak freely.
The president said yesterday he's going to improve your...
We want to, these steps must be done, not only promises. There is a lot of promises, but nothing was done.
Is this a revolution against the regime?
No.
What is it?
Changing some rules, some unjustified rules only.
Changing. Like what?
Emergency law. Emergency law.
But he promised to do that.
We are waiting.
The authorities say it was no coincidence the unrest in Syria began in this city. They point the blame at what they call foreign elements who have been smuggling weapons across the border, a claim people here dismiss. Activists dubbed Friday to be the Day of Dignity, a word repeated time and time again in this city, just like the words freedom, justice, reform. No calls, however, for the downfall of the regime, at least for now. Zeina Khodr, Jazeera, Daraa.
And Zeina is back in the capital, Damascus, from where she joins me now. Zeina, when I was speaking to you in Daraa yesterday, you were saying that there was no sign of any security forces out on the streets. Clearly that changed. Why did that change?
Well, like you mentioned, there was an agreement between the security forces and the people of Daraa that the security forces would just not be visible. They wanted to ensure that tensions won't be inflamed, especially since funerals were underway, and that they wanted to respect the dead. But what happened was hundreds of protesters were marching from the old city to the city center, and what they tried to do was burn the statue of the late President Hafez al-Assad. That is when security forces opened fire, and we believe at least 2 protesters were killed. The unrest really has been centered in Daraa over the past week, but like you mentioned earlier, it's spread to other cities yesterday when anti-government protests were taking place and security forces opened fire. We believe the highest death toll was in Sanamin city, which is located on the road between Damascus and Daraa. Protesters there were trying to make their way to Daraa when security forces opened fire. They wanted to reach Daraa to show their support and solidarity with the people of that area. The people there say at least 150 protesters were killed over the past week. The official death toll is 37, and according to Amnesty International, 55. Conflicting numbers, which shows how difficult really it is for us to independently confirm what is happening on the ground.
Yeah, it's a very difficult picture to get. The government saying that security forces opened fire because some of the protesters were armed. Has there been any evidence of that?
Well, I was in Daraa for more than 5 to 6 hours yesterday. We watched the march. We attended the funeral. I did not see any arms on the protesters. I cannot really be sure if that was the case in other areas, but in Daraa, definitely, I did not see even a gun. And that's what people there told me, that we are unarmed. We just want to protest peacefully so that we will achieve our rights. The man was very clear. This is not a revolution against the regime. I did not hear one chant against the president, one chant calling for the downfall of the regime. People there are definitely angry. A lot of blood has been spilled, and this is a tribal region. The culture of any tribe is revenge. So the government really has to work very hard right now to reconcile with the people of this area if they're going to be able to contain the unrest and stop it from spreading to other areas.
And of course, there were also pro-government protests taking place. How much support does President Assad have?
Well, we cannot deny that the president does enjoy a lot of support in this country. Last night, I was driving around the Syrian capital. Tens of thousands of people were in their streets, in their cars, waving Syrian flags, honking their horns, expressing their support for to Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president. The man is popular. He does enjoy popularity. What people tell you is that we want an end to corruption. It is the people around him. We want them. We want an end to corruption. We want reforms. We want more freedom of expression. Now, we heard Zeina Khodr, the advisor of the president, 2 days ago, promise reforms, and she said that they will be implemented as soon as possible. The real test for the government right now is to show that it is serious, and these are not empty promises, because this is what the people will be looking at over the next few days, whether or not a new media law will be implemented, whether the emergency law will be lifted, and whether political parties will be able to operate. So that is what their demands are, and the government has to make good on those promises if it does want to contain the growing unrest.
Okay, Zeina, thanks for that. Zeina Khodr in Damascus there.